Overnight lows in the mid to upper 60s. Summer is still kind of hanging around. For everything SCV related, go to hometownstation.com or check us out on social media. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at KHTS Radio.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show with my co-host, Alex Grossman.
Good day, Brien. Good day, everyone.
How you doing? We have a very special guest today. But before we get going, a couple of things. First of all, our guest is actually in the eye of the storm. So we'll be talking to her shortly. Hopefully calls won't drop and we'll be able to have the entire interview. But we'll be getting into that in a second. Regarding Ask Brien, the Ask Brien radio show, if you've never listened to it, shame on you. We're also on Facebook Live. The Ask Brien radio show is basically an anecdote from the Ask Brien website. That's ASKBRIEN. Again, people try to spell it with an AN. Some people spell it YAN. Why, I have no clue, because the only way to spell Brien is BRIEN. Anyone who spells it any other way, I don't know what they're talking about. However, let's getting back into what is Ask Brien all about. Ask Brien is a website that allows people to solve business problems by asking experts for their expertise of how they would do something, or another person who's already experienced that problem, how they would do that. We also have videos posted by experts, we have webinars posted by experts, and we have ebooks and blogs. So therefore, it's a great platform for experts to put on all of their information at no cost currently to the expert, and it allows people to, at their leisure, learn about a business problem. It's 2 a.m. and you go, I never set up my accounting books because I always did sales. I can look it up, find a webinar, find a video, learn about it, and find out how to do it. On the other hand, maybe the opposite. I'm an accountant. I don't know how to sell. How am I going to get my first sale? Well, all these videos and more are available on Ask Brien. Each week, we interview a special person who has some special business expertise, and we try to help you learn a new business aspect. So basically, we are your business education resource. Alex, what do you think?
We've had some really great guests in the last few weeks, and talking about business experts and talking about expertise. I think we have a great one this week.
And without any further ado, we're going to welcome Tracy DeForge, and hopefully I pronounced your name right. Tracy, you there?
I am here. Hello, and I'm great. Glad to be here.
And you are in the eye of the storm. I mean, how far away are you from that eye of that hurricane?
Well, we're actually fortunate in this moment. It hasn't turned quite towards coastal Georgia, which is where I'm located, but we're definitely watching it for sure because you never know. They can be temperamental, especially the female ones, so we're hoping for the best.
And if you have to leave the interview for a reason, like a hurricane, I could understand.
Oh, well, thank you. Right now, I think it's pretty calm.
In the meantime, hopefully you have a vest on and a raft not too far away. But so let's go. Let's get into this a little bit. My first question to you is, so what do you consider yourself to be an expert in what subject?
Well, my expertise is in business development strategy with an emphasis on podcasting because my original first half of my career was spent in broadcast radio, and then I left and started my own business development strategy consulting firm. When podcasting started its resurgence a few years ago, I merged my two sets of expertise, if you will, into the perfect combination of working with clients to develop podcasting as part of their marketing strategy.
Now, what is a podcast?
Well, a podcast is an audio file that's downloadable, and that's a very simple explanation. It's an audio file that can be downloaded either online, through a website, or on an app through your phone, and now through the smart speakers.
And so what's the great appeal of a podcast? I mean, a lot of people talk about it. They say they're podcast experts. I mean, I'm a podcaster. I've done hundreds of them. But what do you feel makes people really want to spend their time and listen to these things?
I think that there are a few things that have really brought the podcasting buzz to life, if you will. One of those is flat out screen fatigue. Some people, with blogging was so popular for a long time, video, although it is still very popular, it still requires you to be pretty much in the same place with your eyes fixated on the screen. So podcasting actually allows you to still gather some really great information on how-tos or do-it-yourself or entertaining or engaging content, but they can go with you. So you can take them to the gym with you. You can listen to them on your commute, in your car, on the subway. You can cook with them while you're in the kitchen. And my husband actually, I turned him on to podcasting. He didn't even know what they were. And now he listens to all kinds of podcasts while he's at his desk working.
Multitasking, true multitasking right there.
Right, exactly.
Do you know why did they use the word podcast?
Actually, I think that is a great question, and I don't get asked that very often. The term podcasting was actually coined by a gentleman named Ben Hammersley, and the word podcasting and podcasting itself has technically been around since 2004 because of the integration of the audio files into the iPod app. Now, iPods have since they're not as popular as they were back then because we have the app now integrated on the iPhones. But that's how it was coined in an article in The Guardian by Ben Hammersley, and it was off to the races after that.
Now, so how did podcasting catch on?
Interestingly, U.S. presidents actually influenced the medium, and this was something that I found out recently, and I just found it to be fascinating. So George W. Bush was the first president to have his weekly address delivered as a podcast, and that was back in 2005. And then President Obama was interviewed by Mark Maron, I hope I'm saying that right, my southern accent might be killing it, on the WTF podcast. And Mark was actually a terrestrial radio show guy, and when his show got canceled, he started the WTF podcast, and now it's one of the top downloaded podcasts. I think he has over 250 million lifetime downloads he got within the first 6 years. So there was a lot of momentum happening around that time, and that around just people catching on with it and getting familiarized with it. And then when Serial, which is a very highly engaged, highly entertaining crime series podcast, made it, I think, a lot more mainstream. And in fact, they're actually getting ready to drop their third season, I think, next week.
And so, you're around, it's 2005. George Bush probably didn't have that much of a technical background at that time. And even now, afterwards, how did people start saying, I can look at my TV guide. I can look at DirecTV, and it'll give me my guide for all my shows. But how are people even knowing that the podcast even exists, much less having hundreds of thousands of users?
Well, I think, too, if we step back for a minute and kind of fast forward from where it started to where it is. So based on the most recent Edison research, there are 75 million people that listen to podcasts monthly now, and an average listener consumes about 7 podcasts per week, and that's up almost 20% over last year. So the amount of growth has just been exponential, especially over the last couple years. When I very first started our Business Producer podcast, a lot of people would ask me, we're sitting on a plane, people are like, what do you do? And you would tell them, and they would give you this puzzled look like, what is a podcast? And in my most recent airline flight was less than 24 hours ago, and the person sitting next to me asked me that. And when I said we produce podcasts for busy professionals, they were like, oh, I love podcasts. So it's really just become so much more mainstream. 550,000 podcasts are now available on iTunes. They're adding about 8,000 per week. So they're out there and people are listening to them. But in finding them, I think, is really something that starts out by just figuring out what it is that you're interested in and then searching that category. So you can just do a good old-fashioned Google search on a category for podcasting. And if you wanted to, learn something more about do-it-yourself home remodeling or marketing strategy or just pretty much anything, financial advisors are having a lot of luck with podcasting right now, and a lot of industry experts, coaches, authors, consultants. So you can search the category that you're interested in. And then social media is also a really great way to, if you're a podcaster, to market it. And then people are finding you through social media. I read recently that 2/3 of an audience finds you on social media and then goes to your podcast and then subscribes. And then YouTube, of course, is the second largest search engine. And a lot of podcasters are utilizing the YouTube platform to upload the audio files and integrate them with images and other video type pieces with the audio. So there are ways to find it, and there are all different ways to figure out which ones you want to listen to. And then you can just download them onto your phone and listen all day long.
Sure. So there's an on-demand nature of podcasting that really makes it exciting for most people as well. I mean, it is the idea of you can get expert information or fun information anytime, day or night. And as you say, there's a lot of selection. I find personally that I listen to every different type of podcast. So I'll listen to podcasts on general business information, just on things that I want to know, historical stuff. I mean, history, there's incredible amount there. I also find that it's really interesting if you want to get up on a subject really quickly. I mean, when Bitcoin and all those things happened, I kind of understood the technology behind it really well, but I really didn't understand the appeal. And I just went out and I searched for it, as you're saying, on, of course, iTunes. You know, being an Apple guy, it was really simple. And I found, there were probably 100 different podcasts. I was able to become, very knowledgeable in a really short period of time while doing other things. I mean, literally listening in the shower type of thing. Pretty incredible. Yes. Brien, I do have waterproof earphones, of course, but you can learn anywhere. It's really crazy.
I might need to borrow those waterproof earphones actually with the storm that's coming. So that's a great suggestion. But you're absolutely right. I mean, consumers everywhere are tuning into the trend, and I think that exponential growth is really why business owners are starting to pay attention to podcasting as a viable marketing platform. Because I think when it very first started happening and people were all excited over the more of the crime series and the entertainment value of podcasting, I think that's where the contagion started. But as it's moved into this amazing way as a catalyst for industry experts to get their voice out there and really connect with their target audience, it has become such a successful vehicle for exactly what you're saying, to be able to provide some great snapshots or nuggets of content, and especially original content, because a lot of people, like myself personally, I'm such an audio person. It's why I was in radio for so long. It's why I love podcasting now. Is I've probably written 13 books in my head, but actually being able to do podcasting and then taking those episodes and being able to transcribe them have now allowed me to actually start creating chapters for a book that I'm really going to release instead of thinking about releasing.
We're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. You like that? And 98.1
Love
FM.
it.
You got to love that. Couple of questions for you. So, again, people want to go ahead and start podcasting to help their business grow, and they're a small business owner, they're 1 or 2 or 3 person entity. How would they go about doing that?
Well, I think first of all, you definitely want to identify your why. So we've talked about several different examples so far on the show. And the really strong reason, I think, as a business owner is to, if you're going to be utilizing it as a marketing platform, is to really determine, what is your why and how are you going to get that message across, and what is the content? How do you want to say it? What type of format do you want to do? And really specifically in that way, deciding, okay, so are you going to interview guests? And if your format is going to be a Q&A with a guest, being sure that you're going to be willing to commit to the guest management side of things and the consistency of a podcast. That's also really important. Is the most successful podcasts release consistently. So if you decide you're going to release weekly, then, making sure that you're working that into your lifestyle and into your business schedule. And then deciding, too, how serious do you want to go with this podcasting as an investment? There are all kinds of ways that you can start a podcast. There's technology that allows you to record a podcast on a smartphone and upload it to an app, and then all the way up through to the full-service podcasting production companies like we have, where our busy executives and CEOs, business owners, they actually don't touch anything. They just show up and record their shows in their homes or in the studios that we source and ship to them, and they have a ton of fun, but they don't have to worry about any of the behind-the-scene details. And there's just about everything in between. So a lot of it is determined by what type of time you want to allocate to it and what type of resources you want to allocate to it.
So Tracy, if I'm a business and there's two things that you hit on I want to touch on really quick. If I'm a business, the first thing is I have to really understand what type of podcast works for me, right? So I'd love to understand how you make that determination. The second thing is you talked about the dedication to doing this weekly, which I completely get. You have to find time and do that. And it's like writing the book. You have to sit down and figure out what you're going to do. Is there a length of podcast that is like a minimal or a max that works the best? And the reason I ask that is if you're going to dedicate yourself every week, you may not dedicate an hour, but you might be able to dedicate 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. So can you kind of drive us through those two questions?
Absolutely, and those are great questions. So I'm going to split those into Part A and Part B. So on Part A, determining how you want to create the content for your show is ultimately going to lead you to Part B, which is how long that the show would be ideally. So I always recommend, if it's within your budget, to work with an expert that can help you walk through some of these scenarios. I'm going to use a couple of stories that as examples. So, for example, we had a real estate agent in the Charleston, South Carolina area that was really interested in starting a podcast. Well, when you think about Charleston, South Carolina, that's a pretty specific geography. Podcasts can be global. However, people relocating or retiring to that area might be interested in listening to a podcast no matter where they are. So a concept for that might be that you actually create more of a history-oriented podcast where the content is around the history of Charleston, South Carolina, and then they may impose and place ads or mentions about the real estate company within that. So that's a completely branded podcast for the real estate agent, but done through a way that is interesting and engaging to the listener so that they would want to keep listening whether they were relocating or not. But they may ultimately know somebody who might. So that's one way of doing it. And then another, if you're a consultant, a coach, a business owner, and you're trying to position yourself as an expert, let's say an example of that might be, let's say you're a psychotherapist, and we actually have a real-life example of this one. It's much easier for me to tell the real-life story. So we have a psychotherapist who's an autism expert out of Denver, Colorado. Her business has been built over the last 15 or so years on one-on-one client. That's her business model, is seeing parents of children with autism and working directly with children with autism. But she wants to scale her business and take it to another level. So by using a podcast, she can expand her audience outside of her geography and drive traffic to her website for downloadable products and possibly expand her audience, speaking platforms and things like that. So those are two very different scenarios, but one is created in a way that creates entertaining content for the listener in a way that draws them back to that geographic area, and the one is in a geographic area, expanding the target audience beyond that by bringing in and interviewing parents and interviewing other therapists with different protocols and things like that. So all of this was done, of course, through a lot of dialogue and consulting around the strategy, but at the end of the day, it's creating a product that people want to continue to listen to. It's not a big, long infomercial. So that will give us the chance to then seg into your question about the time of how long should they be. And there are a lot of research out there right now, but what the research is saying that the average customer or the actual consumer of the podcast will listen on or around 24 to 28 minutes. So a 30-minute podcast is a real safe bet. However, if the content is engaging enough, there are stats that show that people will listen to 3 hours. Now, that I think is a real extreme example. And then there are a huge amount of daily podcasts popping up in the journalism field where they're releasing shorter amounts of content, snackable content in daily bursts. So I think it really depends on who's listening and what type of content you're putting out there for them.
Well, before we take a break, the Ask Brien radio show, which is on radio and his podcast, is approximately 48 minutes, which I think is a perfect time.
That's a perfect time.
I think that's a perfect time, too.
And I know we're going to take a break, but I want to leave you with something, Tracy. Tell me about whether you can do chapters in podcasts for replay, and if you think that's a good idea.
That's a tough question. We'll be right back on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Can you keep on?
Arif Halby for Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. Every Tuesday at noon, we uncover ways to help you manage your money, get out of debt, and prepare for your retirement. That's every Tuesday at noon on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. Are you not sure if you can retire yet? Listen to us and learn about tips for savings, retirement strategies, and so much more. That's every Tuesday at noon on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour on your hometown station, KHTS.
Life's not meant to feel complacent. It's meant to make you feel alive. The youth ministry at the Church on the Way Santa Clarita believes that students can belong to the group where we will help them believe they have a purpose in Christ and become all that He has created them to be. We want to see God's power come alive in our generation. We love meeting new people, so come hang out with us. Doors open at 6 p.m. and service starts at 7 every Wednesday night. For more information about the Church on the Way Santa Clarita, including service times and what's happening through the end of the year, visit tcowsc.org.
Who says nothing good happens after midnight? Denny's is best known for their breakfast served round the clock, like the Grand Slam. But you can enjoy breakfast, lunch, or dinner in a casual atmosphere 24/7. At Denny's, the lunch and dinner menu has a variety of appetizers, craveable burgers, salads, and entrees, along with the best desserts in town. Wherever you live in Santa Clarita, there's a Denny's close by. If you're pulling an all-nighter or don't feel like cooking, get into Denny's today. Good stuff is happening at Denny's.
At City of Hope, we don't believe the future can wait for the future. For over a century, we've been advancing science that saves lives. From 4 of the world's top cancer-fighting drugs to the development of synthetic human insulin. We are maximizing the potential of immunotherapy and making precision medicine a reality. It's not enough to promise future cures for cancer. We must find them sooner. We are the miracle of science with soul. Find out more at cityofhope.org.
SCV Water is committed to delivering clean, reliable drinking water every day, 24/7, to more than 350,000 residents and businesses that call the Santa Clarita Valley home. Tap into your SCV Water by visiting yourscvwater.com. Manage your account, pay your bill, and find the latest news, rebates, gardening classes, and much more. That's yourscvwater.com.
Are you ready for some football? Consumers Furniture is. Stop by Consumers Furniture today and check out their huge selection of Power Motion furniture. They have the largest selection of reclining sectionals, sofas, love seats, and recliners in the Santa Clarita Valley. Fabric or leather, Consumers has the right piece at the right price to make your home ready for all the big games. Need it for this Saturday or Sunday? No problem. Consumers has same day or next day delivery on most items. Consumers Furniture, located in the Center Point Shopping Center, right below Sam's Club and Walmart.
KHTS. Now FM, 98.1 FM, and AM 1220, your hometown station.
Bring it on home. Bring it on home. We're back live, 1220 and 98.1 FM with Alex Grossman and my tremendous guest, Tracy DeForge. And Alex had asked the question. Did you remember the question, or does Alex have to ask you again?
No, I think I remember it, and it was all about, can you do podcasts as essentially in chapters like you could a book, or similar to that question, right? Is that what it was?
Exactly, Tracy.
Okay, so what I've seen implemented successfully in regards to that is creating series. So there are some podcasts that release weekly, and in doing so, they may change their topic or have a different guest every week. And then there are also some branded podcasts or regular podcasts that do what they call series, and that would maybe a batch of 5 to 6 episodes that are focused on one particular area of content. And one of the businesses type industry categories I've seen use that very successfully has been the financial wealth advisors category. So, for example, if you were going to do 2 or 3 podcasts on tax reform, then you would actually create a series 1, 2, and 3, and you would use all of those different podcast episodes to have experts on talking about tax reform and then reviewing the different changes in the taxes and things like that. So from an industry-specific perspective, I've seen that work very well for financial wealth advisors.
Which do you think is better?
I think that they're both, and I'm not trying to ride the fence here. I really think it depends on the type of content that you're delivering to your target audience, because I think that, to your point, when you were talking about when you went to iTunes to search for content around Bitcoin, like that's such a specific thing that you wanted to learn about. So if there was a podcast that had 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes specifically on that, you may have downloaded just those to listen to it, but then you may have gotten hooked on the host. They may have been very entertaining for you. You might have really liked the type of expertise that they had, and then you continue to listen past that. So I think there's positives to both ways of delivering it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because what happened is I actually downloaded 3 different hosts of podcasts on the subject, and I found one that I really liked, and I still am subscribed. So it's kind of interesting because maybe it's the way it was done or the quality that was used, but I enjoyed that podcast so much better than the other 2 that I tried. So
that sounds great.
It's interesting, right? I mean, it's not just the podcast, and it's about the quality of it in the content, right?
Well, and somebody that you did not know is now you're subscribing. They're going to become part of your system.
Absolutely.
A lot of our guests have been calling in asking, okay, so this sounds like a great idea, but I don't know what to do. So could you help us out about that?
Yes, and the thing that I always recommend when anyone asks me that question is I first ask them, okay, well, do you currently listen to podcasts? And ideally, they will have listened to podcasts other than just heard that they might be a great opportunity for them to implement into their business. But even if they're already podcast listeners, what I always say, I give them homework, if you will, and I go, okay, I want you to listen to 6 podcasts, and here we call it the 3 and 3. I want you to go to iTunes, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and download 3 different podcasts from your business category. So if you are, just to keep going with the financial wealth advisor topic, if you are in that industry, then go and download 3 podcasts and with different podcast hosts in that industry-specific category, and then listen to those. And then also, and this is really, I think, even more important, is to go and then download 3 of human interest, personal value to you, like something that you want to be engaged with. So if it's something that's in the self-help industry, the parenting, or if it's just, the true crime series. But the important thing to do, the reason why we recommend to do 3 and 3 is when you're listening to the business-specific ones, it's just human nature. You're going to do the better than, less than, I know more, I know less, he sounds great, she sounds better. So there's going to be a little bit of that comparative analysis happening. So you're not going to necessarily pay attention to some of the key things that are important, like how are they delivering their content, how good is their audio, is it painful to listen to. But if you are listening to the 3 that are more of your personal entertainment value or aligned with something that you're interested in that's not your business, then you're going to have a tendency to turn that side of your brain off and really pay attention to those things that I was mentioning, like how does the quality sound, and how is it a fun podcast? Do they have a professional voiceover opening and closing it? So I think that's probably one of your most important first steps, is to get ultra familiar with the types of podcasts that you like to listen to, because you're going to energetically flow towards those types of podcasts.
That's a great idea. And Brien, do check out the Underwater Basket Weaving podcast. I know you've been looking at that quite a bit. So,
Alex, that was a secret. You were not supposed to share that with the
sorry
audience.
about that.
Now I'm going to have to tell them about your fetishes. But all right.
Y'all are too much, and all these underwater jokes are starting to make me feel a little nervous.
Well, especially when you're in the hurricane.
Yeah, Florence is doing
Exactly.
fine over there. Don't worry about it.
Alex said he's going to fly his helicopter over there and rescue you if anything
Seems
happens.
safe. Seems safe.
So you're safe.
All right.
So that may be a first step, but what would somebody need to do? Okay, so fine, I want to do the podcast. I've determined the way I want to do it, but I still have no clue. What am I going to do next?
So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to evaluate your time and your budget allocations. And the reason I say it in that order is because if you have time, then you can go out and purchase pretty reasonable equipment, and you can record it on your own. That will also require you to edit it yourself, or secure someone to help you edit that, and also do the guest management process. So doing a podcast on your own is absolutely very popular, and it's something that people do very well. It just has a tendency to involve a lot more of a time-consuming allocation, if you will, in order to get the product from start to finish. If the budget allows, or if you're looking at, let's say you're looking at your 2019 and you're looking through your marketing and business development budget, which is what we recommend, and looking at where you want to allocate some of those dollars, start thinking about podcasting as an investment in the marketing and business development side of your budget, because you can actually then make an investment in utilizing an expert and a podcast production company that then will take all of that off of your shoulders. So really you can focus on just developing that great original content. And there are hybrids in between both scenarios. So I think, number one is figuring out the type of podcast that you want and how you want to deliver it and how frequently you want to deliver it. And then number two is evaluating, is this something I want to put the energy in and do myself, or is it something that I want to have help with? And then the third phase of that would be, okay, now that you're going to have this podcast, what are you going to do with it in order for you to see a return on your investment, both time and resources? And is it something that, and what type of marketing strategy are you going to put in association with it? Because podcasting is not a standalone vehicle, and there are absolutely ways that you can integrate it into a marketing strategy, which we can talk about. And there's also ways that you can monetize your podcast, even if you are using it as a marketing and business development tool, that you can get back some of those monies that are going out towards the production side of it.
You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Okay, before we go any further, is there, and I don't want to put you on the spot, I might be, is there a specific type of software or something that very commonly known for people that want to do their own podcast? So
you're not putting me on the spot.
I was trying to, but okay.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm trying for you not to. So, but, eventually you're going to catch me. I feel it. So the answer to that is that there are all kinds of ranges. So there are platforms where you can record into, there's a platform called Anchor FM, where you can actually record into an app on your phone, and you can upload it and release it straight, like in a one-stop shop through your smartphone. Now, the challenge with that is you're recording it through your smartphone. So you're going to have a lot of ambient noise. You're going to have, wherever you are, and it's also not going to be premium quality when that happens. So there's that opportunity. Then there's all kinds of software Apple, brings the GarageBand, and then you can integrate Audacity. So there are ways to do it on, a Mac, and then all the way up to and including full-service broadcast quality audio production, which is something that, we're broadcast radio junkies who produce podcasts. So, of course, we love broadcast quality audio. But it's not just our opinion. One of the things that's important about the quality of your audio, no matter which of these areas that you fall into in terms of what you decide to do when launching a show, is keeping in mind that with, referencing back that stat of Apple adding 8,000 new shows a week, that the amount of competition, although the market is in no way near saturated, especially by individual business categories, no way near saturated, but the level of competition is starting to rise. And the more the bigger brands get into the space, that level competition rises even higher in terms of the quality of the listening experience. And you were saying that you had a couple of different examples of some hosts that you listened to and one that you stayed with. And one of my guesses is, without even knowing, is if it hurts to listen to someone's podcast, even if their content is great, if it literally hurts your ears, then you're not going to keep listening to it. So just paying attention to that's important.
Sure. I think the quality, I mean, let's face it, in a crowded market where there's a lot, you're going to go to the quality that's the best, right? Especially in the podcast market I want to go back to the monetization thing because I think that was something raised both Brien and I's our ears up a little. But the idea here is that if you've got a lot of competition and you can choose, and the cost is the same for the podcast, you're going to choose the one that's feels the best for you and gives you the best information. So being the best at what you do is always going to be good. I mean, in my Apple days, there was a product that I actually worked on called Podcast Producer, and we used it in something we called iTunes U, which was iTunes for all the universities doing their own podcast. And in those days, it was fairly complex. But as you say, what a lot of people don't get is that even if you're doing a half-hour podcast, the idea is that you may not be able to get this thing in quote-unquote one take of a half an hour. You may have to interject certain components into it, and as you say, especially when the YouTube format comes in where you're putting pictures and other things in, you may actually have to edit this. And editing is a process we all tend to do, but it's not always easy. And doing it professionally and making it sound smooth and clean. I mean, if anybody's ever tried to do their own home movies and compare that to a Marvel movie, so to speak, right? You're going to see a lot of difference in those special effects and that editing. And a lot of this is true from my experience in podcasts as well. You need to have quality in, quality out, good sound, good movement, and you probably need to work on it to make it good. The first isn't going to be great, and again, the other piece to me is I can change my own oil in my car, but I'm probably bringing it to someone else. And Brian's laughing because he knows I do change my own oil, but in general, if you're a business person, you're busy, you probably want to have some help. You probably have the expertise to be able to do a great podcast about your business, about what you care about, but the mechanics of it, the actual changing of the oil, so to speak, probably left to an expert if you really want to be a winner, right?
That's why I go to Jiffy Lube.
There we go.
And I think you're so right, and I think it actually leads to even more interesting perspective of you're already, as a business owner, you're creating a visual brand for yourself. So you're investing in graphic design. There's so much going on with the Instagram and the visual aspects of social media right now. And one of the keys to any successful marketing campaign is going to be the synergy of where people see you, hear you, experience you. If you're a brick and mortar store, like all of that needs to be cohesive, right? But I think sometimes when any new marketing element comes on the scene, it's like, oh, okay, well, I just want to try this out first. And so they'll go more of the discount route because it's more new, even though they've spent like thousands and thousands of dollars of rebranding a website that includes all this amazing packaging design and visual identity. But keeping in mind that a podcast is an extension of that visual identity because it's your audio identity. So you want it to be as stellar and as equivalent to in terms of quality and customer experience as they are going to have when they experience all the other facets of your marketing and your and just the interaction with your business itself. So I think that's very important. Even it might be a new addition to your marketing strategy, but it doesn't mean that's an area where you need to discount.
So what you're saying is, from a brand building perspective, it's just part of your brand that's just as important as anything else. And I would say it's probably more important because anything you do in your brand that lessens your brand could actually hurt you. So it's really important that your brand has to be maintained. And I'm a real brand centric type of person. It's all about making your brand as good as it can. And a good podcast can make your brand better, and a bad podcast probably can hurt your brand, right?
And our brand is KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM.
Did you say and?
And because I'm a New Yorker. New York.
Well, and to your point, I think that you also want to think about those elements that you're putting in your podcast as branding elements. too, because you want to have, like, where you have a beautiful color palette that goes with your logo, you want a great professional voiceover to announce the open and the close of your show, because that is your audio logo. So it is extremely important what you're saying. It can really lift it up, or it can really be a distractor.
You can say and.
Now that's my
And
trademark.
it can be a distractor.
Certainly gets your attention, though. So we only have about 5 minutes before a break, and then a few minutes after that when we come back. So once you have your podcast, you want to monetize it, I would have no clue what to do. In fact, I've had Ask Brien up now since January 2017. We're almost entering our second year, and I've never attempted to monetize it or do anything about that. What steps should somebody take, and it doesn't have to be for Ask Brien, any podcaster, to try to monetize it?
I love this question because I think people initially, they go in this almost like a silo of thinking that the only way to monetize a podcast might be through advertising or sponsorships, which is the traditional and probably most top of mind way that people do monetize their podcast currently, and it is an effective way. The increase, in fact, I think that the increase exposure around and people paying attention to advertising and podcasts has grown exponentially. I think they're expecting like $400 million in podcast ad revenues by 2020. And that's all fine and good. But what if you're a podcaster who's just starting out and you may not necessarily have that quantifiable amount of downloads or subscribers? Does that still put you in an arena where you can generate ad and sponsorship dollars? And we say absolutely. And the way that I recommend that you do that is take two things into consideration. One is if you are being very vertically targeted in your audience, then you're really looking at a quality of numbers of listeners versus a quantity. So a lot of times people are thinking, okay, like we need to reach a cost per thousand, and in typical ad buys, you want to have 2.5 readers per issue or X amount of thousand people per 15 minutes. But in podcasting, you can actually be very specific that you reach a quality segment of a listening population that's in alignment with your business category. And by doing that, you can also tap into your longtime vendors and your brand evangelists that have been with you. So if you've been in business and you're a trusted expert and you have a well-known business brand and you've been buying from a certain amount of vendors for a really long time, then there's absolutely no reason that you can't ask 2 or 3 of them to walk alongside you with the launch of the show and sponsor the show for you. Or if they don't provide a financial contribution, how about giving you product to give away to your listeners? So that's just one way. And, if we're coming up on the break, I've got many more suggestions, or if you want to ask me any more specific questions. But, we have some really innovative ways to monetize podcasts that are outside the typical box, so to speak.
Well, we are going to ask you for your secret sauce, and that is going to happen very, very shortly. But we are going to take a break, and we'll be right back. This is KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM.
Lots of people can build websites, but there's one Santa Clarita company that specializes in designing websites for your business. Small Dog Creative. The Small Dog Creative team is made up of local designers who are hands-on. Their talented team of experts build premium websites and redefine branding. Small Dog Creative doesn't just build websites. They'll upgrade your business's online presence and turn your business into a powerful online brand. Small Dog Creative, Santa Clarita's most innovative web and design company. SmallDogCreative.com.
The city of Santa Clarita has so much going on this year. Be on the lookout for amazing events happening throughout the year, including the Cowboy Festival, concerts in the park, Thursdays at Newhall, and the Santa Clarita Marathon. There are also a number of fun activities and things to do year-round, including outdoor recreation, hiking and bike trails, adult classes, art exhibits, youth sports programs, and more. You can even sign up to be a volunteer. Learn more at santa-clarita.com.
Have you heard about Assistance League Retail Store? For a good time and a great deal and bargains that are an amazing steal, there are friendly volunteers ready to share a smile. So come on in and stay a while. We take donations on gently used goods, and proceeds from our sales stay in the neighborhood. So for a great buy and a special find, come visit our store anytime. Assistance League Resale Store located at 24369 Main Street in downtown Newhall.
City of Hope is a world leader in cancer research and treatment. And there's a City of Hope community practice location right here in Santa Clarita, eliminating a major barrier in the fight against cancer: distance to quality care. Santa Clarita benefits from City of Hope's compassionate care and renowned clinical expertise. Find out more at cityofhope.org/Santa Clarita or call 661-799-1999.
Santa Clarita's hometown station. Hometown station.
KHTS AM 1220 and the new 98.1 FM.
Welcome back. The last portion of Ask Brien, Brien, on your hometown station, KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We're back here live with my co-host, Alex. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Brian. Absolutely great.
We have a fabulous guest, one of our best guests I've ever had, Tracy. Tracy, you there?
I'm here, and yeah, your check's in the mail for that compliment. Thank you.
We were discussing monetizing a site that just came, a podcast that just started out, and how you would what steps you could take. You mentioned a couple, but then you had your secret sauce. And while we're not McDonald's, you are going to share that with us.
Oh, okay. So before the break, we were talking about, the idea of not being insecure, if you will, about the fact that you might be having a new show or having a very specifically targeted show to a vertical audience. So reaching out to your longtime vendors or your brand evangelists and asking them for support. The other thing that you can think about is that it's not only your podcast that people would see as a value to align with in regards to working with you. So, for example, if you have already been implementing an effective marketing strategy and you're adding podcasting to that strategy, then you most likely already have a tremendous amount of friends, fans, and followers through either your social media and or you're probably already active in sending out newsletters and promoting through your website. So think about the idea that you can actually provide bundling your audience. So the potential person that's sponsoring or working with you on your show, they have access not only to your podcast subscribers and listeners, but also to all of your social media and exposure through your newsletter, and even encouraging, if it's a fit, to bring on the founder. One of the things that we did for my own particular podcast that I have, we had a person that was interested in sponsoring it, and my podcast is focused, it's Journey to There, and it's exploring the intersection of personal and business growth. So the product was for health and wellness, but the founder had a great entrepreneurial story, and it really worked out that we were able to interview her as a guest, a legitimate, very well-qualified guest for our format, but also have them have the opportunity to be involved in access to our other audience. And then you can do creative things like send a survey out on behalf of the advertiser, and just a lot of different things like that, thinking outside of just the normal 15-second live read, so to speak. Probably one of our most, we talk about, I think there are two things that are pretty innovative right now that people are thinking about, and one is event marketing with a twist. So if you are a business that currently creates or utilizes event marketing, then podcasting is a perfect accessory to that. So you can do live tapings, which aren't obviously broadcast live because you're taping them, but you can use your podcasting to drive traffic, let's say, to an industry trade show booth, or to extend engagement with attendees after an event. You can capture testimonials, get interviews from attendees or clients, invite people over to your booth, use that hashtag at events. Most all events these days have a hashtag, so you can basically use that event hashtag and invite people over to your booth and take pictures for social media and capture audio content that way. And we hinted on this earlier, but you can literally use it to publish a book. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a pipe dream to be a bestseller, because you can take that podcasting episode, get that transcribed, get that edited, and then that becomes the foundation, for your next bestseller. And that alone combined with other things that you could merchandise on your website. So we didn't even talk about that, but you can brand your podcast with merchandise. You can create subscription models, develop recurring revenue models. I mean, the possibilities are endless. We could really just do our own show just on this.
Well, we may have to.
I'm waiting for my Ask Brien T-shirt. That's what I've been waiting for. Speaking of merchandise.
That's amazing because when she talked about merchandise, I was going to say we need to have those Ask Brien T-shirts.
Absolutely.
Well.
Oh, no question. Well, yeah, or even if your Ask Brien mouse pad with your podcast, website URL on it, so they can go to the website and they can listen to it while they're moving around on the website. Sure thing.
I don't know if anybody's aware, but we do have bumper stickers, and we have 4 or 5 different trucking companies that have their bumper stickers on all their trucks.
Only because you walked behind them and put them on, right?
And they were not moving when you did that, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
I have friends in the trucking business. Don't take that personally, Mr. Hoffa.
Well, I was actually one of the things I was going to say is create your own call to action. I really wasn't really thinking of it in the way of like walking up to a truck and putting your bumper sticker on it, but that is creating your own call to action. One of the things I was going to recommend is that every podcast provides you an opportunity to speak to your audience, so you can ask them to continue doing business with you after you do your show. And again, encourage them to visit your website, download that ebook, capture if you haven't really started with an email marketing campaign, use your podcast to capture those email addresses and then start marketing that way. So, it really is such a great center of a digital marketing strategy. One of the things I love to point out to people, if you think of it like the podcast becomes the hub.
I don't mean to interrupt. We have to go. What is your website so someone can reach you?
Our website is produceyourpodcast.com.
Thank you very much. You've been listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We have to go. Sorry we couldn't hear more. Have a great time. And until next week, audience, until the next Rocky theme song known as Ask Brien, ASKBRIN, have a good week.
Great healthcare just got easier and more convenient in Canyon Country. Facey Canyon Country is now open directly off the Soledad Canyon exit off the 14 freeway. The 37,000 square foot clinic houses Facey Medical Group primary care physicians, pediatricians, and specialists. Facey has easy 24/7 online appointment scheduling for PCPs and PEDS. For more information or to make an appointment, visit facey.com. That's FACEY.com.
Sweet, salty, tastiest, bacon and pancakiest. Big yawns are okay, yummy syrups, yes way. Butter pecan, blueberry, old-fashioned strawberry. Never empty coffee pot, Mom says it hits the spot. Almonds are the fluffiest, Dad's hugs the scruffiest. Scrambled eggy, pepper shaky, orange juicy, wide awake. Stuffed French toastiest, waffles with the mustiest. Buttermilky, smooth, silky, tastes great. Love on a plate.
IHOP, everything you love about breakfast. Something big is coming to Castaic.
Is it a dinosaur, Bob?
No, Blanche.
Is it the 2020 Olympics?
No.
I know. We're finally hosting the World Cup.
No, silly. They're building Castaic High.
Bob, no way.
Way. Go visit CastaicHighProject.com. You'll get all the latest details.
What's that web address again, Bob?